All right, boom. We are live. We're recording. Jim Brown, what's up, my brother?
How you doing? Doing well.
Yeah, doing good, man. Doing good, dude.
Yeah.
Excited to have you on, man. I'm excited to jump into this topic.
Yeah.
This kind of wonder drug that I guess I don't know if you call it a drug supplement, but I learned about it from you years ago, and I know that we both just kind of recently, not planned out, kind of had a similar experience, with Metformin. But it's I'll just kind of tell my story, and then you can add to whatever you want to add it to. But I don't know when I started taking it, when I first met you. I mean, it's been what, 5-6 years. And
2016 at least.
Yeah, about that. Yeah. I mean, it was kind of about the same time I started the podcast. And
Yeah.
And so I started taking Metformin. And then recently I just got lazy, didn't place my order with it. But then because I had that delay, I was kind of curious now that I'd been on it so long, and just to see what the impacts really were. And I didn't adjust anything, didn't adjust diet, didn't adjust my workouts, everything being the same. And I ended up giving myself a full 90-day break from it. And I ended up gaining just above 10 pounds, like 10 and a half pounds during that 3-month span of time of just like pure freaking fat, And then what's crazy is I just restarted taking it about 2 weeks ago. And dude, I mean, I've shed that 10 pounds off, since that time. I mean, it's almost like daily changes that I'm seeing. And now I know that there's so many more benefits to metformin, outside of just fat loss, but that's one of the bonuses and perks. But I don't think, I mean, for whatever reason, and I know we've talked about this on a lot of our other podcasts in the past, it might just be because it's a generic and there's not a lot of money to be made, but it's just not something that's talked about a lot. They don't hear a lot about it, but from the due diligence and research, and you're much more the expert on this than I am. I mean, it just seems to have so many insane, amazing benefits, so I just wanted to kind of, do an updated podcast on it just to make sure anybody that's interested has awareness of what it is, what the benefits are, and they can, make the decision to maybe test it out for themselves, and so forth.
Now on this recent experiment, were you pretty steady with calorie intake?
Dude, I didn't adjust.
You're still diligent counting everything, right?
Yeah, because I mean, I don't weigh and measure things like to the extent that you do, but I eat the same things every day. Okay. So I mean, like wake up, I have Greek yogurt with some hemp seeds, 2 scoops of collagen protein. That's an hour before my workout. Then I go train. Then I have a protein shake and a banana. And then a couple hours later, I have a plain hamburger patty with some cheese on it. A few hours later, I have another protein shake. Dinner every single night, dude. I have, it's a meat and a vegetable. That will rotate between like chicken, pork, whatever. Then before I go to bed, about an hour before I go to bed, I have 6 eggs and an avocado. So like it's and I don't drink anything but water.
Consistent.
So it is the same, consistent diet. And
that's interesting, man.
Yeah, and I don't. I mean, I for a long time now. I mean, I don't eat any sweets. I don't drink alcohol. So I, try to minimize, those empty calories with it. But yeah, it's just been. It was gnarly, dude.
Yeah. So maybe a year ago or so, I went off of it. That's when I was doing a diet with a client that was literally strictly chicken and vegetable, or chicken and rice, and I was weighing everything. And I did it because of the increased carbohydrates. I wanted to see if I could, put a little bit more muscle back on, kind of experiment with the diet. And it's kind of hard to say what it did at that point, because I was on a diet that was perfect. My body wasn't used to it, so it responded really well. But then, things happened and fat kept back. Eventually I went off of that, kind of got back to eating normal, not really counting everything. And it's I noticed it was easier to get fat, kind of deal. And so I thought, all right, well, shit, I'm going to go back on metformin and see what happens. And, even the first dose, started taking it probably a month ago. And if I take it first thing in the morning, I could go to 1, 2 o'clock without eating, so I know that it had a major impact on my hunger. But that being said, it seems like right away it's easier to drop body fat. And, that's one of the things. It's not really an intended purpose, but it's kind of a side effect that I think, we're experiencing. But it's a great side effect. I'll take it.
Yeah. So before we get too deep into this, I know that YouTube gets pretty strict on this with the terms and conditions, but we're not doctors. Even though I know that you have a lot of expertise and probably more knowledge, and a lot of physicians even do about, a lot of this stuff, but, we're not doctors. I mean, go seek a medical professional. I mean, this is just, shit that we're doing, experimenting with, whatever. So just want to get that out there, because anytime you're adding something in supplementations or medications or whatever it may be, it's always a good idea to consult with your own trusted health professional on, the benefits and if it's good for you and so forth. So just want to get the disclaimer out there.
The good news is now, when we first started talking about it, it was very difficult to get. There wasn't a lot of physicians actually prescribing it. And it was almost like a really unknown type thing unless you were, just a really tip of the spear concierge private physician that was prescribing it for patients. But now it's much easier to get, and most doctors are okay or comfortable prescribing it for you, and it's more widespread than it was, almost like TRT was too. Back when we started talking about it back in 2015, 2016, it was very difficult to find a provider. It was hard to get all that, and now metformin is much more readily available and used by a whole bunch of different people.
Yeah, well, and then like in your area in Florida, I mean, it's like over the counter, isn't it? Or is that okay?
Pretty much, but no.
Okay.
I think the last time I had a prescription filled locally, it was 60 tablets, 1,000 milligrams a day, and Publix had some kind of deal where whatever they gave you $5 for it. So you would go get your prescription filled from them and it was either you got a $5 in-store credit.
Yeah.
So, it's crazy. Super cheap. And even if you buy it, otherwise it's still a pretty cheap supplement. So.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, you and I both work with optimal health physicians, so we do get it through prescription form, but yeah, I mean, the cost of it is, I mean, it's pennies, dude. I mean, I don't know what it ends up breaking down to per pill, but I mean, it's cheaper than probably my branch chain amino acids, whatever
for sure.
it may be.
For sure.
So originally, and I also, because when I first met you, that also led to the introduction to Dr. Brett Osborne, who's an awesome, amazing neurosurgeon, in addition to owning an optimal health clinic in Florida. And I remember having him on the podcast, and he did a pretty deep dive on metformin. And now this is a surgeon, so I mean, he needs his, but he's like, talking about just the overall safety of it and whatever. And he's like, man, is it talking about the efficacy and the safety, because it's been around for over 80 years. So there's so much due diligence on this and study and research, but when he was talking about I can't remember his exact words, but it was, I don't know, something was going on as far as a public review in the health community, but he was like, I'd bet, my 5 fingers on my surgical hand that, this comes, just talking about the safety and the performance and the belief of it. And I might be wrong on this, but I believe that he was even starting to have his kids take it and so forth because of, with that. Now I could be wrong on that, but I can't, it was years ago that I had him on the podcast. But, with that being said, I mean, let's just kind of get into maybe what it is and, some of the overall benefits. Cause like we said, I mean, the helping to maintain lower body fat, like I remember when I used to party a little bit more and drink a little bit more when I, several years ago, when I would take it, I mean, it'd be like before, like if I went on a week vacation, I'd just gain a bunch of weight. Well, when I was taking metformin, it was like I could get away with, some of that, activity here and there. I mean, I couldn't just eat whatever I wanted whenever I wanted, but I didn't have those same effects. It seemed like you could cheat a little bit more with the diet, be a little bit more loose, but then, maintain those. But that's just kind of a plus with it, right? It's a lot of the other internal benefits, but I mean, it's known for being a medication for type 2 diabetics, correct? Right. So to help them not have to go down the path of being reliant on insulin injections.
Yeah. So if you want me to get into it, we can, I'll go over it a little bit of what the mechanism, I'll just keep it really high level. And so overall, what metformin does, the best thing that metformin does, I don't know if everything that it does is actually known, but the best thing that it does, it's probably mostly used for, is to reset your insulin resistance. And the way that it does that, it builds up in your liver, and it inhibits the enzyme that your liver uses to convert its stored glycogen, or stored glucose, which is called glycogen, into glucose to release into the bloodstream and adjust your blood glucose levels. So by doing that, by inhibiting the liver or slowing down the liver's responsiveness to be able to release glucose into your bloodstream, your body can create glucose at different types of pathways to get there, but it's not as efficient as the liver doing it. And it's not as deep of stores, that might be correct to say, as the liver is. So, every day in, day out, your blood glucose level kind of plays this game of up and down, up and down, up and down, based on activity, based on what you eat, a variety of things. Different hormones in your body would kind of create changes in cortisol and all that. And so you're going to have a raise in glucose as your body releases it into your bloodstream, or you eat some of it, and then insulin gets secreted. It drops that blood glucose, and then your body adjusts that level by releasing stored glucose. Your body adjusts to that high level by releasing insulin and getting rid of that blood glucose. So it's this up and down thing that goes on all day. And people who consume a lot of sugar and don't have a really sensitive relationship to insulin have high rises in that blood glucose. And so on your blood panel that you get drawn, one of the things they typically check is fasted glucose levels. And it should be within a normal range. There's different labs have different ranges, but typically, your very low hundreds to high 90s is pretty average. And that's where most more normal people are going to fall. If you were having an issue with that and you were a type 2 diabetic, that's going to climb up. You're going to see 150, 160, 200s, maybe even, something crazy like 300, 400, where you're approaching being sick, and really needing insulin. Anyway, and then you'll hear about A1C, and A1C is kind of a medium or a long range data of that blood glucose level, where the glucose test, fasted glucose level test where it's at that moment. A1C kind of tests the average of it. And so with those two numbers, typically, you'll identify, hey, this person has a really bad relationship with insulin, meaning they're probably like developing type 2 insulin diabetes. Because basically, in a nutshell, that's what that is. So when you take something like metformin, it stops the release of that glucose in your bloodstream. And overall, what that has an effect on is how much insulin you secrete and how big those up and down spikes in blood glucose are in your homeostatic maintenance of that blood glucose level. And so the less insulin that you secrete, the more sensitive you become to it. And so the best thing that metformin does is slows down that cycle of insulin release or inhibits it and changes the way that your body maintains that glucose level. Does that mean that you're going to go hypoglycemic or be low on energy or any of that? I don't notice any of that. It's not a contraindication, I believe, in the instructions or with the contraindications listed as metformin that you go hypo. And so it doesn't remove glucose from your bloodstream like a glucose disposal agent. It just inhibits how much the liver can respond with glucose, thus it's lowering your insulin signal or response. And so, again, just overall, that's what I think the most beneficial thing that it does. Does it change? It changes some of the gut biome a little bit, right? One of the things that you have to be aware of is it will inhibit the absorption of B12. So you have to supplement B12 while you take it. Some people will notice a little stomach discomfort going on metformin for the first time. And a smaller percentage of people just absolutely can't take it. They'll never tolerate it. Some people will have gastro interruption and diarrhea for a few days and then kind of get used to it. And then the majority of patients won't notice anything with it like that. And that's kind of it in a nutshell, what that means in terms of longevity. I think the more sensitive you are to insulin, the leaner you're able to stay. I think the more efficient your body works, the more efficient your body processes foods and energy substrates in your body when you're going from, a fasted state, you're burning ketones, or you're in a caloric deficit and you're breaking down lipids. I think that it improves all of that and overall helps with just about everything. And as far as aging, I really think that, your insulin sensitivity plays into aging. And that's kind of a long-winded answer for what you asked, but that's it in a nutshell.
So like for me, I used to be almost 300 pounds, morbidly obese, and like it's like, dude, if I ate what my wife eats, and, I mean, I'm, I don't know, she's 115, 120 pounds. I'm, right now like 178. But if I ate her same diet, dude, I'd blow up to 250 fast. Like I've always been like just put on fat so fast, and it's like it's a struggle for me to get lean and so forth. Now, is that because then that my insulin resistance, I'm more sensitive to it, and those, when we talk about those spikes, like my spikes are higher. So like for somebody like, I mean, I know that this is beneficial for most, but
Well, I think that if you were fat, because I was a fat kid for a couple of years, for 4 years or so, and I think when you have a background of being fat, and then I've been fit for most of my adult life since I was in 6th grade. You've been fit for a long time, decades now, since you've lost that weight. But your fat cells don't get destroyed; they don't go away. So
yeah,
all those, when you become fat, your body adds extra fat cells to store the fat, because it's a survival. It's an adaptation to survival, and so your body will add the number of fat cells it has and creates when you're in that state, and when you're obese, or you're fat. When you lose all the weight and you become fit, you don't destroy or lose those fat cells. And so I think the propensity then for you to become or to put on fat is just greater and more efficient somehow because of that, due to that reason. And I don't know if that would have a lifelong effect on insulin. Um, it really depends. I don't know if the fat cells, when they're shrunken down and kind of inactive, are putting out hormones, but when they are active and healthy, and have fat in them, they are putting out hormones, and that lead to more fat storage, and ultimately, suppression of testosterone, and insulin resistance to worsen, and all of that. So it's not good. For whatever reason it is, if it's due to partial, of what I just said, maybe some more that I don't know about. Yeah, if you've been fat in the past, you have a propensity. You're going to have an easier time putting it back on, for sure.
yeah. Yeah. And something I read years and years and years ago, and I mean, it's advanced so quickly as far as what people's expertise are, what knowledge, what we know today versus, what we know 20 years ago when I, started researching a lot of this stuff. Or it could have just been, one thing I've learned from, meeting you is, it's like everything I knew, I kind of had to throw out the window, and like there's just a lot of false information out there too. Right. So,
Yeah.
But at one point I had read somewhere that when your insulin levels spike, then your body then starts to store, whether it's whatever it is stored energy, and then converts that into fat. So I don't know if there's truth to that.
Well, that depends, man. It really depends. I mean, we get real complex on that, and the different stages are stage 1 and stage 2 insulin release. But if you're in a caloric deficit, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you eat a bag of candy, it's not going to turn to fat. If you're in a caloric surplus and you eat, too much protein, it can turn to fat. So it really, and one is going to have a different insulin release than the other, probably. Or if you're eating fat, it doesn't matter. You're still going to have an insulin release, and your body's still going to store that fat if you're in a caloric surplus. So I wouldn't get too tied into, insulin levels, and if you have an insulin spike, does it turn to fat? Because if you're in a caloric deficit, it doesn't work that way. It's more, overall calories kind of determine where it goes, and how those substrates are used for energy or to be put in storage. But yeah, I mean, insulin is kind of the storage hormone, but that doesn't mean, it's always stored to fat. It could be stored, could be taken to be run on, for your metabolism to run, or it could be taken to store as glycogen in your muscles and liver, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. So then, it is one of the things that I've heard a lot about with metformin is also just reducing overall internal inflammation. And, with a lot of the physicians that we've had on this podcast in the past, some of them having the belief, and maybe it's not their belief, maybe it's just fact, that, I mean, no, I don't want to say all, but a lot of age-related diseases are due to internal inflammation. And, I've heard a lot of people that specialize in life longevity talking about, one of the biggest keys being to reduce inflammation, internal inflammation in the body, because of then you're not as prone to a lot of these age-related diseases and so forth. But with metformin being able to reduce internal inflammation, is that because of the impact that it has on resistance, or is it doing something in addition to that is able to do
But
that as well?
that's a great question. I don't know. I think that's one of the things. There's a lot of things that metformin kind of do that I don't know if the mechanism of action is really clear on, but it's pretty well reported that or accepted that I think everyone would agree, at least in part, that it does reduce inflammation. How, I'm not exactly sure. Some people will tie that instantly to insulin, but I think that's not correct. I'm not sure why, but yeah, I would agree on that. It does improve blood lipid numbers. We've seen that. We've seen it lower LDL and triglycerides for some reason. That's probably tied, somehow to the insulin. I'm not really sure. And to be honest with you, I don't know if anybody's ever really broken that down and defined how that is or why, but or been able to point specifically, with data that's the reason and why. But yeah, that's a real common experience with most users.
Yeah, well, and in a way, it kind of makes sense, based on what the impact it has on insulin, because it's just like, I mean, if you just look at excessive carbohydrate intake and sugar intake and the way that creates inflammation in the body, and the negative side effects of that creates for people that overconsume with those nutrients, dude. I mean, it does make sense because that alone creates a lot of internal inflammation.
Yeah, but I think has more to do with being in a caloric surplus for a while, and then you're putting on fat, and you're in that cycle of storing body fat, and then as you store body fat, those fat cells are more active and they're excreting more hormones, and they're decreasing your insulin resistance, lowering your testosterone, changing your hormonal profile, and fat feeding and growing your fat cells really is a cycle. Right? All those hormones and a whole cascade of stuff turns on your body to continue that. And so I don't know if it's just from carbohydrates and sugar when you're in that state that lead to that. But yeah, I don't think it helps for sure. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So we've got, okay, it helps reduce for potentially a lot of different reasons, and some may not be quite known yet. Because it's been around, this drug's been around for 80, 90 years now at this point. And
long time.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's a lot of data on it, but one of the issues with it is because it's generic and there's not a lot of money to be made on it. It's also not one of these that is, I don't know what to say, but, that's not funded by, massive pharmaceutical companies. And so they may not get the backing to maybe do some of this research. I mean, maybe that's true. Maybe it's not. I don't know. Maybe there's
a lot of research that's been done on metformin, a lot over the years. And, but when you were looking at something like, I think it was the TAME trial was the one that we were all excited about, where, it was used in an anti-aging type purpose. I don't know if that ever concluded or not, but to your point, if nobody's going to come up with, X amount of money, X amount of dollars, a couple $1 million to fund this study that everybody's going to be bought into, what would they study or what would they prove? And typically that's just to bring a new drug to market, or, some type of endpoint that's going to probably pay their money back. It's not just for the good of mankind. They're going to do this study, that's very rare. So yeah, it's hard to have real data on people like us using for anti-aging purposes. I don't think we're going to see, new studies come out and a plethora of information, but it's one of those things where, you and I know probably a couple hundred people that have started it, had changes. And so we kind of get an idea, almost like if you were a physician and you were managing a practice of patients that were all taking it, you see some people can't take it, some people tolerate it, but they have to work through it. Everybody should supplement B12. You start seeing some things. Hey, lipid numbers normally improve and insulin response changes, And so I think just from those things that we kind of see in everybody, don't really need a study that's paid for to do that. I mean, these are pretty common things that everybody would mostly agree upon, that either prescribes it or is taking it.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, as far as like with the gut biome, I mean, I remember having a conversation with a physician at one point that was talking about, I don't want to misspeak for them, but the statement was, they weren't saying it was necessarily equivalent to intermittent fasting of what it does in the gut biome, but that it was, had a lot of the same similar impacts on a healthy gut biome. And you feel it, dude. Like even after just a 90-day break after taking it for years, I mean, the first time I started taking it, dude, I was so damn, like at first, man, like for the first maybe week, I was just so bloated. Like I couldn't come close to consuming the same amount of calories. I was so full all day long, plus I'm like, hitting the toilet, but I had abused, like I'd never fasted before that point. I mean, I'm sure I had so much crap sitting there, like just, candida yeast, whatever it is that builds up inside the gut walls. But this time, I mean, I felt it for a couple of days. I didn't have like the diarrhea, like and stuff like I experienced the first time taking it. But I definitely felt for the first couple of days, like it was doing something. It does a little bit more bloated. But then from there, it's like, I feel like let's just say, you do a cheat meal, at least for me, like, dude, I usually need a nap. It almost feel like if I go eat pancakes, let's just say, which is a rarity for me, but if I do, just that all that sugar, whatever, it's like it does something for me where I'm just like, I feel like I'm just done, dude. Like I'm useless, where when I'm on this, like I don't feel that like uncomfortable gut bloated feeling, even though the meal's the same, like I did when I'm not taking it. Yeah. So I know something's going on. I don't know what it is or why it's doing it. But I've heard others say too that, the future of health, I don't want to say all the future of healthcare, but a big portion of the future of the healthcare is gut health and understanding the gut health and, what that leads to.
Yeah, I don't remember. I know there's a bunch of literature on it. And to be honest with you, I'm not prepared to recall that right now. It's been years since I read it, but there's significant changes that happened in the biome due to metformin. Some of it was good, some of it wasn't good, but overall, I think that it was beneficial. The main thing that I can for sure say is that it inhibits the way that you ingest B12, and so supplementing B12, or I forgot what the exact mechanism was, but you have to supplement B12, and I thought that was because of the biome. But yeah, I remember saying that it favorably changes some things, and for most people, well, not for most people, but a lot of people go through what you experience, when you take it for the first time like that. Either you can work through it or you can't, and some people can't tolerate it. A lot more people will have kind of a changeover period where 2, 3, 4 days, maybe a week, where you're in this transition period, and then things kind of settle down and you begin to tolerate it. And that's due to a gut biome change or some changes going on. So it's interesting, man. It does quite a few things.
So then you talked about the I guess negative impacts of B12. Now I'm not doing this because of metformin per se. I'm just doing it because I don't know what I've had my doctors have me doing for a lot of years now. But I'm actually doing like daily, it's a B complex. So it's a mix of like B12 and B6 and so forth, but like daily injections. Is with your experience with it, is an injection of that necessary, or is it like just getting like a good B12 or B complex, adequate?
What I can recall, most of the clients that we had try it and run it, the supplementation of B12 was fine orally, but there's some people who just don't, if it's lack of intrinsic factor, one of the things you need to absorb it and process B12 for one reason or another, some people just don't process oral B12. And so if you were going to do it, I would, if you're going to start metformin, I would just take a normal oral application of B12. And then next time you have blood work done, have your B12 level checked. If it's completely tanked and you're supplementing, you may need to move to shots. And it's an it's a sub-Q shot. It doesn't have to be intramuscular, and you do it with an insulin syringe. So it's very small, it's water-based, you barely feel it. But yeah, that would be something then that you could utilize to get past that.
Yeah. And like I said, it wasn't because of metformin that, my doctor had me doing that. It was just, I don't know, they're probably just trying to sell me extra shit, it's like I'm doing, an amino injection. I'm doing the, B complex injection, glutathione injections, plus my TRT, feel like a human pincushion some days.
Oh, I know. The regular bodybuilder over there.
Yeah. The other thing too with this, at least what I follow and what I've been told in the past, is kind of timing with metformin. So like I work out first thing in the morning, and meaning like I'll eat and then I'll wait 45 minutes or an hour before I, but like I take my metformin in the evening. Like I've been told to not take it like right before we work out, right after we work out, because that's when you actually need the carbohydrates and you don't want to necessarily suppress, that. Is that a thing? Is there truth to that, or?
Nope. Negative.
Okay.
No, it doesn't matter. The gut changes that happen in your gut happen and stay. It's not dependent on metformin being present at the time. And then as far as the suppression or, is processed carbs, or, a lot of people confuse it with a glucose disposal agent, like it helps your body utilize the carbs more efficiently. That's not what you don't have to take it and have to be active floating around your bloodstream to do that. It does that anyway. It changes your gut biome. So that's going to stay no matter when you took the pill, and, as long as you're taking it on a daily basis. And then the processing or the amount that's in your liver and inhibits the enzyme from breaking down stored glucose as glycogen into glucose released in your bloodstream, that takes days and weeks to get out of your system. So even if you miss a day or whatever, you're still having the effects of metformin no matter what. And so the timing of it doesn't really matter. The dosing, we see anywhere from 500 milligrams to 2 milligrams or 2 grams a day. But the timing thing, I don't really have an opinion on, other than it doesn't matter. We did have a couple clients that were having trouble sleeping, and we noticed that when we removed the PM dose of metformin, that helped. And so other than that, it doesn't really matter.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah. Because I think it was when I was working with I think Dr. Grossman at the time, and in all fairness, I mean, this was years ago when this was just kind of getting experimented on by, not again, the drug's been around forever, but what I mean by experimenting of, optimal health physicians doing it for non-diabetic purposes. And, so like he and I, like we were testing different things, even trying to like split it up, like 1 in the afternoon, 1 in the evening, versus like 1,000 milligrams right before bed. Like, so, and I'm sure that there's, a lot more over time, but it makes sense how that doesn't matter because it builds up over time. Now, how long does it take before it really starts to build up where, like you mentioned, okay, over time, like you get to a point where it's like you can skip a day and it's really not going to have a negative impact. You probably don't want to make that the habit where you're skipping 3 days a week. I'm sure at some point, maybe there's a residual negative impact, but like, how long does it take before, like, is it one of these things, okay, like for, the first, it takes a few weeks before it really gets built up enough in the liver or wherever it's built up in the body before,
Well, for me, I can make myself go hyperglycemic if under a certain amount of, there's a certain thing that I can do during my workout, right? If I'm adding carbohydrates and I don't eat before, I'm not eating afterwards, with metformin on board, I can force myself into hypoglycemia. And when I stopped, maybe a year ago or whatever, and I was increasing carbs and doing the very strict diet, I was adding carbohydrates during my workout, and that would be normally not, anyway, I'm not going to be specific about it, but that's a situation that I would normally go into hypoglycemia if I had metformin on board. It took about 2 weeks for that to fully go away after I stopped using it, to where I had normal liver function, meaning that it could respond by releasing glucose in my bloodstream. And so I believe, and I don't have any other supporting data, but I believe it takes, anywhere from 7 to 10 days for the amount to be lowered enough that your liver isn't then inhibiting the release of glucose in your bloodstream. So.
Yeah. And I know some of the stuff we don't, have the supporting data, but I mean, you're kind of your own human lab rat, you know what I mean? And, I mean, both of us, but you even more extensively are always, well, I mean, you've been doing a lot of this stuff for a lot of years. And, I mean, a lot of this is, because I mean, the fact is, and we've had these conversations on the podcast before, but it's like, and it might have increased. I mean, this was talking to doctors that, been doctors for a long time, have been maybe, couple decades since they were in medical school, but at least from those that we've heard, it's like, dude, they get like 8 to 16 hours of, really like nutrition training going through medical school, right? So, a lot of this ends up being, even though like I'm working with the optimal health physician that I am, a lot of this, I'm kind of going through my own experiments, telling the experiments that I'm doing and reporting back to them. Like this is kind of, they don't even always have the knowledge, everybody's got different expertise on different things, and it can take, because the human body, dude, it's so insane and so complex, and really the scientific community, as much as we think that science is advanced, and it has, but at the end of the day, we still don't fully understand the human body, dude. It's gnarly, right? So it takes a little bit of tweaking and experimenting, and because everybody reacts differently to shit too.
Yeah, and you have to have people that are really pushing the limits, to really test out these things before. I think you see, breakages, like when you build a new car, you're experimenting with a car or whatever, you have to go out and break it, right? You have to test it to see what the limits are and what's going to make it run better, what's going to make it steer better, performance wise. You have to push the limits. And, I think a lot of times, these physicians have their protocols and they have those, ways to treat or dosages and recommendations. They're built on sick, broken people. And so when you apply that to a different application like we're doing, you need people who are going to go out and try it out and see what they can get away with, or see how they can push it, and take their body to the limits of extremity, extreme leanness and back and forth. And that's kind of how they, and us, and everybody learns and expands their knowledge of how to use the drug optimally in a different way, basically. And so, physicians are taught that metformin, it could cause lactic acidosis, which is ridiculous. We've talked about that before, but that's something that's been around for, some kind of, it's been in medicine for 40 years, but that's not really what happened, but that's something that's always going to be, I'm sure physicians 20 years from now will be able to recite that from something they learned, and it's just, it's not useful information, but, yeah, not to their fault, but they're usually treating broken, sick patients with stuff not optimally, people like us trying to push the limits of optimization.
Yeah, and we're starting to see this change, and really over the last 10 years, maybe even more so than the last 5, that we've seen, kind of a shift in the medical community, dude, where, you got more and more people focus on the preventative, up to that point, to your point, dude, it's like, you wait till something's broken and then you figure out how to fix it, versus, okay, how do I prevent that problem in the first place? It's, and when I say this, I'm just quoting conversations that we've had with, a lot of the physicians that we know on the podcast and so forth. But, conversations of like, look, like 90% of age-related diseases can be prevented, so many of these things that people, suffer with later in life, like, dude, if you just do the right things and you're proactive with this, and, and I get a lot of people don't, because it's, takes a lot of work. It's strict, and insurance doesn't cover a lot of this stuff. So it's, out of the fact, but it's like, look, dude, I don't want to wait till something goes wrong. Not only do I want to prevent that, no, I want to increase, life longevity. But dude, like, I want to fucking feel great as I'm living through this life. And I'm 40 now, but like, I feel better than I did when I was 20. Now, granted, I was, obese and all these things in my, I didn't really start taking care of my health until my late 20s. But it's like, I look at you and it's like, dude, you're about 10 years older than me, but and you run circles around me, and it's just like,
I don't know about that. But
well, yeah, but I look at that, I'm like, shit, like, it's like, I look at, it inspires the hell out of me of thinking like, but it's also proof of, what you can do. And, we don't, but we're seeing this now. We're seeing, Harvard's got a whole entire, research department now for longevity and preventative health. But in all those circles, metformin becomes a big part of those conversation. Even if you, look at some of the leading life longevity physicians that have devoted their life to this space now. And again, this is just, kind of really coming out of the woodwork now, people putting, all their focus on this, but metformin is a big part of those topics. And, one question I have for you is, because of, because my thought process of, in the evening, and this is just when I say my thought process, right, is just how I'm making sense of it in my own head, is because I work out in the mornings. And it's like, okay, well, I need the glycogen stores, but then too, I'm looking at this of, okay, well, like, you got certain professional bodybuilders, let's just say, before they work out, like they might even supplement with, insulin or whatever it may be. So thinking about that, if it doesn't matter when you take it, and it can potentially not allow that glycogen buildup or that same insulin impact than if you weren't taking it, can it hinder for, those that are like really focused on gains, right? Like add muscle, can there be a negative side effect from a muscle gaining standpoint?
Well, they say that, it lowers mTOR, and mTOR is kind of one of the cellular mechanisms that you want to be higher if you're trying to synthesize protein and create new proteins for muscle, specifically hypertrophy. But I don't really see it, man. I haven't seen it. The guys that we know and if you go to the gym and push it and do the things that you need to do to put on muscle, you're going to put on muscle. Would you put on more if you didn't have metformin? I don't know, man. I don't think so. But I can tell you, if you didn't have a healthy relationship with insulin and you were on metformin and you corrected that, you're going to gain more muscle. And so I don't, the longevity guys love to spout that out and say, oh, mTOR this and mTOR that. But they're all, for lack of a better term, they're mostly all little sticks. They're all small guys. They all eat, 900 calories a day, and they're trying to live to be 130 years old, being kind of a, sorry guys, but looking like a skinny fat, omnisexual. And, I don't know if those are really the experts on mTOR and muscle gain. So I'm not really sure that I buy into that. Perhaps a little bit, but it's on a measure that we don't realize. The guys in like us and in our group that train hard and know what to do and know how to eat, know how to train, that percentage of whatever it's hindering, it's not noticeable. At least not in that I've ever seen. And one thing it does, it doesn't inhibit the deposition of glucose or the buildup of glycogen. Actually, it makes it more efficient in muscle glycogen because the way that normal glucose is stored, right, when you eat anything, your body's gonna fill up the liver first and then muscle glycogen. Well, if you're on metformin, your liver glycogen should be damn near topped off and full all the time. And so when you do eat carbohydrates, you're more likely going to store that as muscle glycogen. And so, I mean, from my perspective, that means that I'm able to train with more glycogen, and I'm gonna train better and more efficiently, meaning that I'm going to recover better. I'm going to be able to push my stimulus harder, and I'm going to gain more muscle over time. So, we could argue that point from a different angle as well.
Yeah. Well, I'll take your word for it. I mean, since your arms are bigger than my legs. My obviously is it hindering your muscle growth?
Yeah, I just don't see it, man. I don't see it. On paper it makes sense, but all the guys that spout that aren't guys that to me know how to work out and put on muscle anyway. So I don't know. I disagree with that.
Yeah. So then it's because it's becoming, this thing that more physicians is it, you don't necessarily, and this might be a silly question, but, I've never went to my regular doctor, which I don't even have a regular doctor anymore. I've been doing so long that, work with concierge physicians, but like your regular family, anybody could just go, if they're curious about this, could just go. It can be prescribed by, you don't need a optimal health. It's just any family practice doc, whoever your doctor is, right?
Yeah, it's so widespread now. I think that most family doctors have heard of it and would be comfortable prescribing it as an anti-aging or a preventative type of supplement. Could be wrong, but it's way more mainstream than it was 5-6 years ago when we first started talking about it, and a lot more physicians are familiar with it. Yeah. Now when I'm talking with physicians and I tell them I'm taking metformin, it used to be, well, why are you diabetic? And that whole discussion. Now it's like, oh, how much do you take? Okay, how long have you been on? All right, you like it? Okay, cool. That type of discussion. So it's more and more mainstream.
Yeah. So, like my wife does 500 milligrams a day. I do 1,000. Is there, everything it has, anything can be abused. I mean, is there a thing like, I mean, just being fully transparent, honest, like I've had, big cheat days where I've popped 2000 milligrams, right? Like just in the thought of, okay, well, shit, like maybe not simultaneously at the same time, taking it spread throughout the day. But, is there a point where like, it's like can be excessive and
well, dosing it with meals like that isn't going to do anything for you. I've pushed it to 3 grams a day and didn't really notice a difference at all. And so I feel at 1,000 milligrams a day, even for my body weight at, normally 260, I feel that I have the maximum benefit from it. And so, yeah, and that's typically where we see most people at. And like you said, if you had an immediate result on 1,000 milligrams starting back on it. So I wouldn't, there's no reason to try to increase that and see it. I mean, you're seeing results from it, and so am I. So I wouldn't push it past towards too much more over than that. And I've tried it, I always kind of push the limits, and I can't tell you that I noticed a difference.
Yeah. And this is something well, I guess I shouldn't say this is a statement, but just it's a question of, like I just took that little bit of a break. But I mean, I was very consistent for about 5 years. And really, I mean, the break was about a 2-week break, but then I just had to, because I ran out and, was just lazy on placing my order with my doctor. And, but then from there, I took the additional break because I was just curious to see, what it was and, I'd been on it so long and just seeing because when I first started it, I wasn't really strict on my diet and I was, overweight at that point. And so like I added so many things simultaneously. I didn't necessarily know what the impact would be, with having a control and that being the only variable. But is there any like reason to ever pause, like to let the body kind of, reset?
No, if you're gonna go in for a procedure where they're gonna use a contrasting agent for like a coronary CTA or a study, then you would want to stop metformin. I think most indications say the day before or whatever, but I would go off of it as soon as you can. Give yourself at least a week or 2 before you had that study done, unless you're in a car accident or something and they're going to do it. But there could be a interaction if you're on metformin with a contrast in your kidneys. But other than that, I don't think there's a reason to cycle it back and forth other than, for your own good. If you want to see if it's effective, like you and I both noticed a difference, that's valuable information. Hey, okay, yeah, I see the difference. This is why I'm taking it. I'm going to stay on it. But I always encourage that experimentation too, because if you don't notice a difference being on it, then why are you taking it?
Yeah.
Unless you just believe in, okay, I believe in the science behind it. I hope that it's doing me good. But with something like metformin, I mean, we see the difference with it. So.
Yeah. Yeah. And it made me wonder too, with, because you hear about like with the pandemic that we just went through, like, people that had diabetes seem to be maybe hit harder, and, reducing internal inflammation, seemed to make it where it was, lighter. But like my whole family got the vid, dude. And everybody in my office, all my business partners, like it just ripped through everybody. And even though I was quarantined with my own family in the house, dude, like, and maybe I got it and we just didn't have any symptoms. But I felt great the whole time. I didn't, and I, part of me wonders. Now I'm taking a lot of C and D3 and, other things as well. But I wonder, it got me thinking wonder if metformin had, because with it reducing inflammation, with other things, like if that had some type of a benefit, to that.
Yeah, I don't know.
I guess there's no way of ever knowing, but it makes me wonder because again, I mean, I know a lot of healthy ass people that also have had. It's not just. But it was kind of a crazy thing. I kept waiting to just get hit hard with it because again, everybody, dude, like, I mean, everybody knows what that was like, right? So
yeah, I never got hit hard either. I don't know, for one reason or another. I'm not sure why, but I think the more healthy you were, most really healthy people, for the most part, if they did have it, it wasn't as bad as obviously metabolically sick people, as we know. So yeah. Whatever's working, stay doing it.
Yep. 100%. All right, man. Well, I think that's about time. We can wrap this bad boy up. Any last words about what we've been talking about today? We'll wrap it up. I don't want to cut you off.
No,
we've share.
We've done a lot of information on metformin. I think it's a great supplement. I believe most people should be taking it. Most people benefit from it. And, you can try it out for yourself and see, but it's been great. It's been great for us. And, like I said, I've gone off of it. Now this is my second or third experiment, and I just stay leaner on it. I just have an easier time staying leaner. So,
yeah, perfect. All right, you guys. Well, thank you for watching and listening. We truly appreciate all your support. Keep crushing it, and we'll see you next time. Peace.